A meeting to order. It's a couple of minutes after 3. And let's see, we do have a quorum. And let's see, agenda approval. Can we get an emotion on that?
Kathy Heisey Callahan, I move approval of the agenda.
And a second.
Wayne Clark, El Paso County, second.
Okay, any comments? I'm seeing none. And on the line, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do have an agenda then. Okay, consent items. Do we have anybody, Jared, online that wants to say anything or comment? Okay.
So not right now, but that would be the next agenda item.
Okay.
So.
No, I'm in a hurry today. Come on. Okay. Is there anything on number 3 that we need to address? Anybody in the room? Okay. Now, Jared, we'll move on to the next one.
If just for a point of formality, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Wayne Clark, El Paso County, motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'm out of practice.
Kathy Heisey Callahan, I second.
Okay. Any discussion, comments, changes to that? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there are none. Getting back on track. I'm out of practice. Okay, now do we have any public comments?
So, Mr. Chair, everyone who is either in the room physically or virtually are either staff or members. And we did not receive any advance requests for public comment. So I think we can move forward to the next item at your discretion.
Okay, and moving on to action items here. Danelle, we'll turn it over to you for a minute.
All right, thank you. So our first action item today, we have membership for our Community Advisory Committee. So I believe everybody here knows that Mr. Rainey, who was our chair and an at-large member of the CAC, he has resigned his position due to his election to the Colorado Springs City Council. In this situation, our bylaws state that the committee shall screen or interview applicants to fill at-large vacancies. Just for everyone's awareness, we will actually be filling 2 vacancies. So we'll be filling Roland Rainey's position, and also Sheila Williams is an at-large member who her term will be expiring at the end of May. She does not wish to serve another term. So we will actually have two spots to fill. The previous time that we had at-large positions to fill, the CAC nominated a subcommittee to actually review those applications. So right now, what CAC or what staff is asking of the CAC is to give us your recommendation on would you like to nominate a subcommittee to review those applications, and to kind of give us permission to go ahead and post those positions to get applicants.
If I may, on a comment, I would encourage that. And I would actually like to recommend or nominate Maddie and Kathy and Tyler to be our subcommittee. So that would be my recommendation. Assuming you all are still acceptable. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Is that a motion and we need a second, or are you just asking for advice?
Mine is a recommendation that can be taken as a motion.
Right.
Welling Clark, El Paso County, I endorse the recommendation, and if this is a motion, I would second it.
May I ask a quick question?
Yes.
If a subcommittee isn't formed, then how are applications reviewed? What does the process look like?
Good question.
That is a good question. We could do it where we send the applications out to every person in the CAC. That would probably make it a little bit longer of a process. You could also just direct staff to review them if you'd rather, but just precedent here typically has been that a subcommittee has been formed.
Good question.
And generally, the subcommittee is only 1 or 2 meetings, so it's not a huge lift of time.
As I recall in the past, most of them's been virtual, haven't they?
Yes.
That, instead of a burden on everybody's time and travel and everything of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have another question, Maddie? I'm sorry.
Callie?
I had Maddie on my mind. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I didn't know if your motion still stand.
I did the motion. He seconded it.
There's, okay, there we go. So
And I apologize.
It's on the table right now, so there's discussion.
Yeah. Anything else you need to address, Danelle, on that?
I don't believe so, as long as those individuals are willing to serve and the CAC is willing to vote on that motion.
Prior to the meeting, I did ask each one, and unfortunately, they didn't realize what they were getting into other than Kathy. I think she has an idea. Do we have any other discussion, or if not, ask for all in favor, say aye of these 3 people that were mentioned.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I don't think we need any additional discussion since it passed.
Excellent. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put that advertisement out and collect those applications and get with those folks to set up a time to review them.
If I recall, you have to have a 30-day notice
Yes,
to
I
everybody.
believe
So
that's correct.
the subcommittee won't do a whole lot for the first 30 days. Okay. And so we're hoping to have this completed in July.
Yeah, June, July, depending on what the timing is.
Okay.
Yep.
That works. Okay. I think you're up again with the
Yes.
loss of Roland. And
So as a follow-up to that item, we're also having a change in our membership in our officers. Per our bylaws, what happens is that the vice chair and the second vice chair would just scoot up a position. So Ed Dills will be our new chair for the rest of this year. And then Tyler will be our first vice chair for the rest of this year. And then we will hold another nomination session at the end of the year. To fill the second vice chair position, we will need nominations and a vote to do that. We can do that today. We can make nominations today and vote next month. We can wait and let people think about it and vote next month. It really depends on what you would like to do as an organization.
any comments or thoughts on this? Or and can people self-nominate?
Yes.
That's still part of our bio. Kathy?
I think we can go ahead and just nominate and elect today if everyone's on board with it. I don't know that we really gain anything by waiting a meeting. And with that said, I would like to nominate Teresa Cheek for second vice chair.
Okay, and on nominations, do we need a second?
Yes.
Okay,
I would second the nomination, Chuck Theobald, Colorado Springs.
okay, we have motion and a second. And before we go any further, is there any other nominations, obviously? And anything online, Jared? I don't see any hands. So,
I don't see any hands.
Now that we're in discussion, because it's a motion and a second, she's on board to do that, right?
Teresa Cheek at large. Yes, I am on board to do this.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
any other questions? Okay, and any other comments you want to say, or?
I'll just say I appreciate the opportunity to serve the community. And while this is not a place of comfort for me, I'm looking forward to learning more about how to do this process. Thank you.
Okay, I know based on the fact that we only have one nomination, that that's probably going to be a go, but I think to keep things clean and simple, I'd still prefer to have a vote. So all in favor, any further discussion before I trying to get ahead of myself here? Okay, all in favor of Teresa being second vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, congratulations, I think.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, the pay is great.
Great.
Okay, do you have anything else to know as we're moving on? Or?
No, just move on to the next information item.
Okay, and Jared, if you could pop my screen up, I don't have it printed today. And who is covering the regional freight plan for us
So the
on the highlights?
the action or the information item we have today,
Yes,
it's actually for our unified planning work program.
okay.
But I can talk a little bit about.
Okay, I wasn't sure who was covering that. I wasn't told ahead of time.
No, just me.
Okay, just you again. Okay.
So what we have in your packet today is our draft of our fiscal year 26 and 27 unified. It's a unified planning work program, which is a really complicated term for basically a document that tells you, the public, and also CDOT and our FHWA and FTA partners, how we're going to spend our transportation funding that is provided to us. As the MPO, we're required to do certain transportation planning activities. And so this is just the formal document that tells everybody what we're going to use that money for. Just some highlights. We do this every 2 years. In the interim year, we do an update to it. So you'll probably remember hearing about it last year and the year before. A couple of highlights that we're taking on in fiscal year 2026. So we are building on our regional freight study that was completed 2 years ago, I believe. I'm looking at John. John's not here. It was completed 2 years ago, and it was really the first regional look at freight in the area. And so now we're kind of taking that information and building it into an actual plan that will, the intent is really to provide some strategies for the region regarding freight. That actually just kicked off in the last month or so. We have a consultant on board to help us with that. The consultant is Cambridge Systematics, who also actually did our freight study. They also did the freight plan for the state as a whole through CDOT. So they're very familiar with this space. Within PPACG, Jared O'Brien sits upstairs next to me. He is our project manager. So if you have any specific questions on that, or want to get involved, or know somebody who is involved in that space, we would be happy to take that information and share that with Jason. And always good to have more people involved. So that's one of our big projects going on right now, spanning into next year.
Ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Does that get into any of the Fountain Rail project with the transportation with freight? Is that down the road too far?
It probably will touch on it. I don't know to what extent, because I know there's kind of a separate planning effort that has happened and will continue to happen related to the.
I was just
the rail
curious
network.
what kind of impact it would have on the overall freight study for the area.
Right. I don't know that we're down the road far enough to know.
Okay.
But that's a great question. I'll take that back and see if we have any information on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Couple other things that we're looking to do in the coming months. We will start a new transportation improvement program. So that will be the fiscal year 27-30 to 31 tip. And basically that document is where we take the funds that are provided through us and actually award funding to projects. Right now we have awarded funding through, we have awarded funding through FY29 through fiscal year 29. So we'll add 2 more years to that. Plus, we'll make some adjustments based on actual revenue versus projected revenue, things like that. And that's another document we do every 2 years. Another thing that we're working on is a regional safety action plan. Again, this is Jason's baby, but it is, you might have heard there's some overlapping projects. So Colorado Springs is actually doing its own regional safety action plan. Fountain actually has another supplemental project as well. But this is a regional look, including El Paso County, Teller County, and Park County. And we are kind of managing the project. Woodland Park is actually the sponsor of that project because they needed to be the applicant for grant purposes. So this is funded through a federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant with some matching funds from the state DOLA pot of funds. So we're actually just kind of kicking that off as well. We'll probably finish that up. I think we're hoping to finish that up early in 2026, in calendar year 2026, so that those jurisdictions can go after implementation funds. Basically, there's a federal program where you can get safety implementation funds, but only if you have this safety action plan in place first. So when that comes out next spring, we want that to be an opportunity for folks to go after funding. Another couple other things we're looking at doing, potentially some sort of follow-on project to our active transportation plan, which was adopted last year, potentially something related to wayfinding. Not quite sure how that's going to shake out yet. We're talking with our jurisdictions to make sure that we're going down a path that will be beneficial to the region. We don't want to just do projects to do them. We want to be good partners and use the money wisely. We also are looking at an update to our public participation plan, which needs to be looked at. I think that will start later on this summer and probably wrap up early next year. And then there's some other opportunities that we're looking at related to our GIS, our potential imagery or traffic information, potentially some traffic count information or some just traffic data services. So we're talking again with the jurisdictions to kind of see what it is that they need, what we're giving them now, and making sure that we're bridging that gap. So those are kind of the things that were on our big picture radar for 2026. The UPWP also details some things that are likely to happen in 2027. A little bit more fuzzy on those just because we're not super sure of how the budget's going to shake out. But so what we have for you today, again, is the draft. This is purely an informational item today. What will happen is that next month we'll bring it back looking for a recommendation to release this for public comment. And then per our federal requirements, we need to release this document for a 30-day public comment period. And after that, we'll bring it back for a formal recommendation for adoption. So again, happy to answer any questions either today or, in the next 2 months.
Are we being impacted at all by air quality? Because I was reading this week, Denver had some issues the last few weeks, and are we being impacted at all with this?
Not at the moment. We are in attainment, and we adopted this long-range transportation plan in February while we're in attainment. So we will stay in attainment through the next long-range transportation plan.
Good.
That 5-year cycle, at least for planning purposes. I don't know, John, if you want to talk more specifically because you have a lot more information than I do and knowledge, but I would say it's definitely on the radar and something especially that our executive director is looking at a lot, but for planning purposes, no.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I could give much more of an answer other than I can go slightly more into the weeds and say, they look at your number of exceedances. And unless you have a reason for that exceedance and they do some sort of that, if you're the fourth one down the list, if it's beyond the standard and you have that, then your region will go into non-attainment, and there's a whole process of determining what your state implementation plan or SIP requirements would be. You know, is it more buses? Is it more of a travel reduction program, right? You come up with your plan of how you're going to react to the being in non-attainment. You put those into place, and then it basically, again, the EPA looks at that. So it's a very long process. So after we're declared in non-attainment, there's a very long process until we actually become non-attainment and have to follow these sorts of rules. So it's one of those things, right? Is there an immediate impact? No. But if we continue to have exceedances of the air quality standard, we will go into non-attainment, and a whole bunch of other rules will go into effect. Once you're into non-attainment, you have to then prove that you have met the standard. Once you've meet the standard, then you have to do 20 years of maintenance to show that you've maintained the standard, and then you can go back into attainment. So again, it's a very long and complicated process. So everything Danelle said was correct. I just gave you another layer in the weeds. But hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
Any other questions you might have?
Well, in Clark, El Paso County, I have questions, but I can wait for anybody else.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Okay. Okay. Just a couple of questions. One, the statement was made about the freight plan. I know the city of Colorado Springs and some other entities have truck route plans. How does the freight plan that we work through PPACG integrate with the different municipality truck route plans?
That is a great question. And honestly, I'm not sure I am the best person to answer, but I can take it back to Jason and get a proper answer for you.
Okay.
I know that our consultant and our team takes that information and integrates it into our plan. I'm not sure that it goes the other way.
Okay, I was just curious if there was work being done in conjunction with the different municipalities within the county and the MPO. That was the basic question. All right.
John knows.
I
more
wasn't
than
clear. Sorry about that.
Yes. No, I mean, and again, so what'll happen is our consultant, Cambridge Systematics, and Jason O'Brien, our PPACG project manager, going to reach out to all of the jurisdictions, get their existing plans and projects and compile them all together. But again, the last document we did was a freight study, and the study was just sort of a SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, right? And so we took a lay of the land and we figured everything out. And it included some projects in a list. But again, because it was a study, that there was nothing in that list of projects that was prioritized. So this is the next sort of step where it's an actual plan, where we're going to say, these are the projects we're going to do, and this is the priority order of which we're going to do them. This always becomes messy because you have lots of competing interests, right? So you'll have maybe one city will say, oh, well, ours should be the most prioritized project. And then you could have one of the counties say, no, this is the most prioritized project. So there's a little bit more interaction and maybe not necessarily interaction where everybody can get what they want. And that's always a sticky situation for us. But that's sort of where we're at. And it's important because you have to be able to prioritize what your needs are within your region, because this goes up into a state plan. And so now all of a sudden, we can't compete with the Denvers and Boulders of the world if we say, well, these are all our children and we love them equally, right? Because at that point, you know, if you only have one glove and you're not willing to give it to any one of them, no one's going to be a professional baseball player. We've got to pick, you know, which one of our projects are good. Prepare them to go into that state process, because again, then it moves on to a federal process. And that federal process, again, is where there's more funding that's available. And again, for those projects to be able to compete with Tennessee and Minnesota, et cetera, we have to be able to have a plan that makes sense and justifies why these projects are important to the region and what the benefit will be to the region. So it's going to be a little difficult. You know, we might have some folks kind of going, well, you should have used this as criteria or that as criteria. We get it, and they're not, and nobody will be wrong, right? It's all sort of like the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And ultimately, we have to pick something that is defensible, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to like it. So that's where we're going to be moving with that freight plan. But again, all of the jurisdictions will be invited to participate. And if they have things that they've already identified, they can move those into the process. Hopefully that either answered your question or I dodged it sufficiently long enough that you.
No, yes, sir, it does. It's I guess the concept, what the philosophy was, is this done in silo or is this done as a team? And it sounds like it's done as a team. And
It's a big
great.
team.
Yeah, yeah, it's like making sausage too. I fully understand.
Yeah.
Danelle, another question. You mentioned Woodland Park when we talked about the safety action plan. You said Woodland Park had to file the plan. Is there a limit on the size and not Colorado Springs or others, or was?
No.
Did I misunderstand something?
So Woodland Park is the project, the official project sponsor, which in this case mostly means they're handling the funding on behalf of the region. And that was in part because the DOLA grant that we got to provide the local match for the federal money was only eligible to municipalities. We at PPACG as a region, as the MPO, could not apply for that funding. So Woodland Park took it upon themselves to say, you know, we'll step up, we will handle that financial step for the region as a whole. So
I see. So in other words, they acted as a team player to come up as an advocate on behalf of PPACG.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
we
Compliments to
appreciate it very
Woodland Park.
much.
I have a last question. Can you go to page 26 of the PDF?
I can try.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that what it was is I think it was page 11 of the was it integrated
Of the
plan
draft document.
draft,
Mhm.
right? I was looking at it. Let's see, planning challenges and guides. Can you go down to the bottom?
Mhm.
Okay, planning. Okay, right there. I'm looking at that. I was looking at the matches and where the federal government requires only a 17% match from local dollars. I was looking at other projects in there that require higher matches and all. Is this, and this is more of a philosophical question on my part, does this mean that the Federal Highway Administration and the entities that fund this want to ensure that all the different MPOs and entities are kind of on the same page when they do planning? And is that why it's a lower match for the locals?
So the match you see actually documented in here, and it's a 17.21% local match. That applies to our consolidated planning grant funding. So that is basically the money that comes from FHWA and FTA, that's Federal Highways Administration and Federal Transit Administration, to us as the MPO to do our transportation planning. So that's purely our budget money. So we do have that 17% local match, which we get from our PPACG dues to put toward the federal match or the federal share of the money.
Right, and it was just from a philosophical standpoint, is the Federal Highway Administration trying to get everybody on board to do the same type of planning, so we have an apples and apples type of integration, or is there something special about that? I just was curious.
Do you
You
mind?
you wanna
So,
take
so, so no, and you're now about to get a history lesson that nobody really wants, but you asked the question, you gave me a microphone. It's not my fault. All right, so I don't remember exactly when, but I believe it was in the 70s, but you know, don't put all your money on double jeopardy on this and the exact when. But basically there was an issue between the feds and the states. The states were like, hey, you have a lot of land that we cannot tax, and you are not allowing us to put on the tax rolls. So whether that is federal lands or Native American reservations or whatever, they're like, so you know, we're having a hard time, so we'd like to tax you, federal government. Federal government's like, no, you don't want to tax us. And so what they said was, look, we'll give you a deal. We're going to call this sliding scale match. So if your state has a lot of federal lands on it, you pay less than the 20% match. So when you have states that have minimal federal lands, they pay the normal 20%. So it's an 80-20 sort of split. For the states that have a high number of a percentage of federal lands, we get what is called, again, sliding scale. So here, when they ran everything through the formula and they looked at all of the federal public lands in the state of Colorado, they said, okay, yeah, you guys get a break. Your break is 2 whatever percent. So you're the 17.21 versus 20. And again, I think you've all heard me obnoxiously drone on about how I came from Arizona. Whoa, that was a little hurtful, but okay. You could have said, no, you're cool, John. But in Arizona, it was 5.4 because we had so much. Nevada's another winner because of Area 51. They've got a lot of other lands that are feds. Alaska is another one that, again, based on the sliding scale. And this all has to do back to that question between the states and the federal government. How are those lands taxed? And again, the decision was, we're not taxed, but we'll give you a deal. Hopefully that answered your question. And everybody's like, oh, I didn't really need to know that, but thanks for telling me.
And that's a problem I know counties have with what they call payment in lieu of taxes, because they have federal land that they cannot draw property tax from.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Same sort of
Yeah,
concept.
in this county.
Chuck Theobald, City of Colorado Springs. My question is on page 6 of the draft document, which is page 11 of our packet. I'm just curious if there are any changes from previous planning documents to what the community outreach looks like.
Our community outreach is actually something we're going to take a look at in the coming year and make some updates to our public participation plan. So at PPACG, we have a public participation plan that applies to the organization as a whole. And then for each of our major, like for our long range transportation plan or our transportation improvement plans, we do kind of a specialized public participation document just for those specific documents. So that is something that it hasn't changed yet, but we anticipate some changes coming in the near future.
This looks a little generic for the type of document it was. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Anyone else? Oh, Tyler, I didn't see the light on.
Oh, I just turned
Oh, okay.
on. Tyler Peoples at Large. I want to say thank you for the history lesson. That was actually very fascinating. And so outside of this context, I don't think I would have ever learned that. So thank you for that.
All agree. I think Danelle can answer this, but kind of a spinoff on what John was answering for Welling. The freight study, does that go beyond Woodland Park, beyond Calhan, or is that strictly an I-25 corridor type thing? Or
I believe the regional freight study is the COG. Is it the, no, it's the MPO boundary. Okay. Right, so it does not go out to Calhan, but it would go up to Woodland Park, Green Mountain Falls, all of that.
Okay,
Yep.
but not beyond,
Sure.
not divide or,
No,
anything? Okay,
no,
okay.
no,
I
it's,
just wanted to be clear on,
and
okay.
Jared put the map of that area up on the screen.
Perfect.
so.
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. Anyone else? And I am trying to pay attention. And I see no one on. Okay, is that all you have to know?
It is, yep.
Okay, and let's see. Moving on. I can't think of anything else I can bring up. Any other announcements from anyone else? Yeah. Welling.
Recently, we've had a resolution endorsed by the City Council of Colorado Springs to name a bridge after Petty Officer First Class Griffin, AM1 Griffin. He was a PBY pilot. Okay, that's a twin engine airplane. That's a amphibious plane. Was at Pearl Harbor, and during the attack of Japan, they swam out to their airplane. They were at an air base that was first attacked and tried to take off, and Japanese fighters that were sweeping shot them down. Swimming ashore, they were strafed, and he was the first Coloradan serviceman killed in Pearl Harbor, and it's believed he was the first United States serviceman killed in the Pearl Harbor attack. With that little history, we have Colorado Springs has passed a resolution. 3 weeks ago, we were just up at the state, and the Senate just passed a resolution. Last week, it was just passed by the House. We will be naming the Southgate Bridge into the Air Force Academy on I-25 in honor of Petty Officer First Class Griffin. The date is currently June 17th. So if Congressman Crank can be there, that would be great. Okay, and anyone else. But we're working on it to get that done. As a proud member of the U.S. Navy, we're working with veteran organizations across the entire community here. And I take great pride in that this will be the third bridge named after a Navy veteran, Pearl Harbor. Fillmore, we have the Don Stratton, Arizona survivor, Pearl Harbor. Down in the Highway 24, I-25 interchange, we have Lieutenant Downing, who was the senior surviving officer of Pearl Harbor, a survivor. He has since passed away. So in a Navy, in a Army Air Force town, I got 3 bridges named after the Navy.
Welling, if you would, could you put that information in an email to Danelle and let her get it out to everybody?
I will get that announcement. We just got the word this weekend that the CDOT tentative date is June 17th. We're still planning where to hold the event and how to host it and parking. It probably will be west of I-25 and south of the entrance at the Air Force Academy. Wherever there's some place we can get parking, when I get the official, I'll send it out for everybody to be there.
Perfect. I'd
Thank
love
you.
to
And I'm
forward-
working with the World War II Aviation Museum, National Aviation Museum. They have a flying PBY. I want to do a buzz when they do the dedication.
Well, that'd be great.
Thank you all.
Anyone else? And Kathy's even being quiet today. I'll hate to end this too early. I know that I was, but meeting schedule, I think everybody's aware of that. And otherwise, I apologize for not being on my game today. No excuses, even though I had a couple. But anyway, thank you for bearing through this. And Welling, thank you for that information. I look forward to attending that. Okay, if no one else has any comments, we're adjourned.